Welcome to the Starter Girls Podcast, your ultimate source of inspiration and empowerment. We're here to help women succeed in every area of their lives: career, money, relationships, and health and well-being, while celebrating the remarkable journeys of individuals from all walks of life who've achieved amazing things. Whether you're looking to supercharge your career, build financial independence, nurture meaningful relationships, or enhance your overall well-being, the Starter Girls Podcast is here to guide you. Join us as we explore the journeys of those who dare to dream big and achieve greatness. I'm your host, Jennifer Loehding, and welcome to this episode. Welcome to another episode of the Starter Girls Podcast. Wherever you are tuning in today, we are so glad to have you. I'm your host, Jennifer Loehding, and I am so excited about my guest today. So I want to, real quick, paint a picture of what this episode is about, if I can get situated in my chair here. So my guest today has a story that beautifully blends personal resilience with professional expertise. As a speech-language pathologist, she has spent over 2 decades helping individuals from infants to the elderly develop their communication skills. But it's her journey as a mother to a special needs son that has profoundly shaped her perspective. Her son experienced a traumatic brain injury and stroke as a baby, but his incredible progress defied the doctor's predictions, thanks in no small part to her deep knowledge and unwavering dedication. So I am just excited to chat with her, hear her story, what she's doing. I think you guys are too. But before we bring her on, I do need to do a quick shout out to our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Walt Mills Productions. Need to add excitement to your YouTube videos or some expert hands for editing? Look no further. Walt Mills is the solution you've been searching for. Walt is not only your go-to guy for spicing up content, he's the force behind a thriving film production company with numerous titles in the pipeline. Always on the lookout for raw talent, Walt is eager to collaborate on film and internet productions. With a background deeply rooted in entertainment and promotion, Walt Mills leverages years of skills to give you the spotlight you deserve. Want to learn more about Walt and his work? Head on over to waltmillsproductions.net and let your content shine. All right. With that, we are ready to bring our guest on. But before I do that, I just want to make a quick announcement to say to head on over to startergirls.com. That is startergirls with a Z, if you don't know that by now, .com. And there you can sign up to get on our newsletter, keep up with what we're doing, the Empowerment Digest, and get involved in the community. And so we would welcome you over there. All right. So my guest today, Janine Tang, a speech-language pathologist with over 20 years of expertise, specializing in early language development. Janine is passionate about transforming how we approach language learning, particularly for young children. She works tirelessly to empower parents, caregivers, and educators with strategies to support early communication skills and reduce the need for speech therapy interventions. So Jeaneen, welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you here today.
Thank you for having me, Jennifer.
It's going to be fun. And I love your red, by the way. I'm looking at the picture. For the guests that don't know this, we get to see this little side screen where like all the little buttons are. And like your red top is just like poof, poofing out there. I really like it.
Thank you.
I like red. I don't have it on today, but I wear a lot. I like red and black and blue, all the main colors. So it's a good color. So, all right. So let's talk about you. I want to kind of dive into what you do, because you've been doing this for a while now. So, and you have firsthand experience. You kind of, I want to say this first. I think what's great is that you're not just a speech pathologist. You've had this journey, right, that's really kind of led you into this. So I want to talk about that. Back us up and tell us a little bit about what led you to where you are today.
Wow. So yeah, it has to go all the way back until I was 8 years old, right? I didn't know what I wanted to be. People would say, what did you want to be when you grow up? I'm like, I don't know. I wanted to be something, right? And when I was 8 years old, my grandfather had lung cancer and he ended up passing away. And at the time, I remember being 8 years old and very helpless because I wanted to help this man I loved dearly, but I didn't know how to do it because I was only 8 years old. But that sparked something in me to want to help people and this need to be like a positive person in other people's lives, either whether it's a teacher or an educator or whatever. And I thought I wanted to be a teacher because I had really great teachers growing up. I loved learning. I loved class. And when I was in high school, I played sports and I learned about physical therapy. And I thought, that's something that's somebody that could have helped my grandfather. Excuse me. So I thought, okay, I'm going to be a physical therapist. And in order to do that, you need a graduate degree, right? So I got my bachelor's degree in something else I love, which is English literature and creative writing. And when it came time to apply to grad school, I was like, well, everybody was going to physical therapy, I felt. It was like a very saturated, environment. And I was like, well, I don't know about physical therapy, but I really loved English. And I thought maybe I could teach English and get an MFA. And then someone asked me, have you thought about speech therapy? Because I did performance speech in high school and college, and I hadn't really heard about it. But come to find out, my best friend from elementary school, her mom was a speech therapist. And kind of learning about what speech therapists do, I was like, that's something I would really like to go and try because it involved language and also helping people. And so the University of Hawaii at Manoa, I'm from Hawaii, so I was going to undergraduate in Oregon, and I was able to go back home to Hawaii and get my master's degree. And because there was a shortage of speech therapists, it's been historically this line of work is in need, right? They need speech therapists. The Department of Education in Hawaii was offering a stipend. So basically, grad school was paid for. And it was a great opportunity because they're like, we'll give you money for school as long as you work for us for 3 years. And so I went to the University of Hawaii at Manoa, graduated, and worked in the school district for 4 years there before I moved to Los Angeles. And I loved working with children with special needs, right? It was great birth control because you were so tired. You were exhausted from working with these kids. And I was very happy being a therapist of these kids with special needs. But I also saw the parents, and I never thought I'm like, I'm so glad I'm not a parent of a child with special needs because I saw how much work it took. I saw how stressed they looked. And I was like, when you're a parent, you don't get to take a break. Right. You don't get to be like, well, I'm going to not be a parent anymore. You have to be a parent. Right. And then I had my son, I turned 35, and in 2012, I was like, well, I don't know if I want to have kids or not. I was happy being an auntie. I have 2 wonderful nieces, and they're both in college. And they're, but at the time they were little, and I loved being their auntie, and I didn't think I needed anything more than that. And then your biological clock ticks, and you're like, well, maybe right. Do I not? And then my partner at the time, we're like, well, let's just try. And if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And of course it happens, right? It happened. We had our son, Che, and he was born in 2012. And, he was a lovely baby. He grew quickly. And unfortunately, when at 13 months old, he had a fall from our bed. And it was a very short fall, but he had a large brain bleed because it was a wood laminate. So it was a hard floor. He had a big brain bleed. He had to have emergency craniotomy. And the swelling in the brain was, so bad that it caused him to have a stroke a few days later, which is, blood loss to part of your brain.
Yeah.
So it was blood loss to the traumatic brain injury side, which is the left side, which affected everything on the right side of his body. So he couldn't move his right arm or leg. The doctors thought that he might never walk or talk. And all of a sudden, we have this child who is now disabled. And, he could have died. And thankfully, right. He didn't. And I was very glad at that moment that I was a speech therapist because I knew what kind of therapies he would need. And that's all I could do at that moment. You're in this shock of like, yeah. You have this child who almost died and is going to need so much help. It's like, what can you do to not be stuck in this state of, shock and not knowing what's going to happen by putting yourself in action and being like, I'm going to get him all of these therapies once we get home. We lived in the hospital for 3 months. And then by the time we got home, everything was in place. And, now he just turned 12 and he's amazing. And he still doesn't use his right arm or hand functionally. He can kind of move his shoulder. He can't open and close his hands like normally at all. But he has learned how to do things like play basketball with his left hand. He can do some taekwondo and things like that. But what that experience helped me be is a better therapist because
Yeah.
not only, before I had him, I could see speech therapy in one realm, right? I could see it as a
Mhm.
therapist and like, this is what you should do with your kids. And this is the way you should approach things and how to be a parent. And then once I became a parent and then a parent of a child with special needs, now I can have this whole other perspective and I can see things in a 360. I can be empathetic and build rapport with these parents with kids with special needs because I've gone through something very similar to them,
Yeah.
and I can
Yeah.
provide strategies to them about their child because those strategies have worked with my son as well. So I felt like it kind of is my little bit of a superpower. I don't want my child to be disabled, but if he is disabled, it's helped me be a more whole person and a better therapist.
Yeah, your story gave me chills on so many levels because it's almost like you were meant to be in that space. I'm not saying that you were meant to that you had to go through this tragic, situation, but you were equipped when you did. And it's almost like there's so much to this because if you look at like the silver lining of this, like I love that you said that you can look at this in like 360 because now before this you were this speech pathologist, but you maybe couldn't relate to those people yet, right? It's like walking into anything you do in life. It's like going to a counselor for divorce and the person's never been through divorce, right? And you're like, tell me how to go through divorce. Well, you've never been through it, right? You now have firsthand gone through this and tragedy that it may be. I mean, it's wonderful to hear how he's progressed and he's doing. I mean, I can't even imagine as a mother what you went through, having to go through that and then to come out on the other side. But I think it's allowed you to shine in an area that you were probably meant to shine in. You know what I mean? And that's when I see situations like this. I just had this conversation because I just got off of a podcast before I did this one, and we were talking about because not to change and make any not lighten anybody's load, but I got in 2012 I was diagnosed with a rare nerve condition that completely turned my world upside down. And I thought in that particular moment that was bad because it lasted 4 years. I mean, it was in my face. It was, they call it a suicide disease. It was extremely painful. I thought I had never felt pain until I felt that pain. And then in 2021, I got diagnosed with another rare condition that landed me in the ER 8 times. And if not more painful than the first one. And I told the girl today, she asked me, several questions about like how I define wellness. And I said that, I gauge my wellness on how I'm feeling. If I'm excited about what I'm doing, then I know I'm thriving and feeling well, right? And we were talking about all this. And I said, sometimes I think that we get these hard things because there's a reason we need to go through them. And for me, it's probably because I have a voice. I can talk about things and I can share messages with people. So when I hear stories like this, I think there's reasons that as bad as they are that we have to go through them because there's something for us that's to come out of this. You know what I mean? And in this particular case, it may be that you found your gift, where you are supposed to be in this world, your placement. And so I think finding the silver lining is important. But I think when you find your gift too, I think that's a really cool thing.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I totally agree. Like, I'm glad, if this had to happen to a child, that it was my child that I could work with every day, right? Because people ask me,
yeah.
do you ever do speech therapy with Che? And I go, every day.
Oh yeah,
Every
you're living it.
interaction is speech therapy, he has great conversational skills. He still has special needs. He has, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, adaptive PE. He has resource room for school, but he's in a regular ed classroom with adult support. And he's able to achieve such high goals because, his dad is amazing, he's physically, he's why Che is like physically sound. He's made a really great progress with him there. But language wise, both of us speak well with him. We don't baby him or anything like that. And we make sure that he is, able to have conversations and be polite and do all of these things. And I feel that Che is able to, be the best person he is because he has great parents that
Yeah.
try to do the best.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I think that's important. And yeah, you hear people have these stories and they'll always say, I don't wish that I had to go through this, but I sometimes, I say the same thing. I say, I don't like that I had to go through these hard things, but I'm grateful for the experiences because it's allowed me to do things on the other side that I may have never done prior to that situation. And that's why I do the podcast. It's why I do this. I tell people all the time, the podcast is really, if you back up and you go through my journey and you go back and you understand what I went through, why I do what I do, then it all makes sense to you. Because for me, it's about taking y'all's stories, people that are overcomers, people that are doing great things, and showing the world that one, there are amazing people out there doing amazing things in the world, but also that there are people surviving every day that are turning their lives around and living the extraordinary or making the best of their situations. It's not all doom and gloom, And so I love your story, and I'm sorry that you had to go through that, but I love that you guys are surviving and thriving, and you're in the space that you need to be, and grateful that you knew what you needed to do when the time came. It's like doing karate, right? Like my kids took karate. It's like doing the stuff so that you know when you need it, how to use it.
Absolutely.
So good stuff. I guess. So do you have your own practice or do you work with a group or how does that work?
Yeah, so I like to do a variety of different things, right? So
Okay.
I still work with adults in hospitals 2 days a week, and then I work with a company that does early intervention therapy a few days a week, and then I have my own private clients as well. So I'm trying to, build more of like a training program for parents
Okay.
and do
Yeah.
some in-person or virtual trainings. But I really feel that, working with kids with early intervention speech therapy needs, that there are so many kids that might not have needed speech therapy if there was better parent training and education. Because we
Yeah.
go through birth training, right? When we have a child,
Right.
how to give birth, how to diaper the child, how to make the bottles, right? All this training. And then you take the baby home, and then you're like, what do I do with the baby besides
Right.
making sure they're dry, making sure that they're fed, making sure they have a blanket on or that they're cool or warm? It's like, how do you interact with them and how do you make sure that you are not doing too much in a sense? Because I feel like parents, as we want to be good parents, and I'm sure with your first child, maybe you did too much. Like you
Oh
want to
yeah.
make over
Sure.
anticipate what they need. Like every little grunt or
Right. Or
they
no,
need
you gotta
this.
go get
I
them.
got it. I got
Yeah.
it. They exactly what they want, so we provide it before they even realize they might need it or want it or indicate, because we the title of my book is I have a book for parent training. It's called Play
Okay.
Dumb and Sabotage because
Okay.
play dumb is like the idea of knowing what the child might need, but mindfully under anticipating. Because a lot of parents who have kids that are late talkers, they are really great parents because they are doing so much. But in
Mm.
actuality, it's really a detriment for that child because that child is no longer interacting or doesn't have the ability or opportunity to interact with their environment naturally because everything is being
Oh.
done for them.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
no, this all makes sense. And this is good. And while you were talking in the beginning, I was thinking about, yeah, this conversation of, with the first child, how you do it, just even in teaching them skills, right? Like the diaper, the bottle, all the things you go through. And then by the time you get to like the third child, I made a joke, the diaper's like hanging off the kid. You're like, oh, they'll get out of the diaper when they get out of the diaper. I feel like seriously, that was my house. It was like first one, yes, like you're talking about baby cries, you go in, they're like, bring the baby in the bed, like everything you're worried about. And by the time you get to the third one, you're like, just put the pillow on the floor, the kid will fall over and go to sleep. My son did that. He was such a busy child. I'm not kidding you. Like he would run through the house chasing his sisters. And I'd walk in the room and he would be bent over on the couch asleep. Like he would just be standing and fall over asleep on the couch. I'd be like, Sean, I think it's time for bed now. So it's great. It's great. So no, I love this. And when did your book come out?
It came out in February of this year, or
Okay, so it's fairly
2024.
new.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's pretty
very
new.
new.
It's pretty new, and
Awesome.
it's
I would love
available.
to ask you a little bit. I'm also an author too,
Yeah.
so I kind of understand the process of going through that. And I would love, because there may be somebody even listening to this too that is thinking they want to write a book, or they're kind of in that starting phase. And I love, let me say this too. I love that you're kind of doing your own thing, like got your own little practice, but you're also staying looped into some other things, which I think is good, because you're not, putting all your eggs in one basket, which is good. And I like that, because I'm kind of that way too. I'm very much like I've got my work that I do here, but then I do other things in other ways that I'm tied to, so that I don't know if it's that I like to be spread all over, or I just like to have my hands in different things, I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah, yeah. I get it.
But
Like there's variety, right? I like variety. I like I'm also it's less commitment in a sense, because you can do
mm,
certain things and have more flexibility in your
yeah,
schedule, and it allows me, if I'm not working full time someplace, then I can go pick, my son up from school or drop him off or whatever
right.
he needs to do. So I like the variety and flexibility of it.
I think I'm with you on that too. I like variety because I get bored easily. So I like to be able, I think one of the great things, and you might agree with this, and then we're going to come back and talk about your book, but I think one of the neat things about being an entrepreneur and also being able to be with your kids, because I fortunately have been able to be with mine, is that they're all adults now, but as they were growing up, I was able to be home with them and navigate that. It's just that to be able to like dictate your day, and every day is a new day, right? Like there's never, I mean, yeah, you pick your kids up at the same time or take them to school, but there's still that variety in the day that you could sort of mix it up,
Yeah.
and I love that. I still do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so let's talk about your, the book process, because I would love to know how that went for you. How long did it take you to do the book? Was it a long process? And what did you find like there was some challenge, or did it just easily flow for you?
Okay, so I had the idea. So I've been using the term play dumb and sabotage for many, many years. And I thought I want
Okay.
to do like booklet or handouts or things like that. And um, then I thought, okay, maybe I want to, how am I going to create a greater outreach, right? How am I going to create a greater impact on the world? And I thought about going back to school and getting a PhD to teach,
Okay.
and then I was like, well, then I'd be only teaching speech therapists, and I'd be hoping that they would translate and work with other people, with parents and everything. But I'm like, my real focus is parents. So I thought, well, why don't I take that money I would use for grad school and put it into writing a book? But I didn't know where to start. And I saw all these ads for selfpublishing.com.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I ended up signing up with them, and
Okay.
they give you like a writer, an author mentor. So they do kind of uh, keep you going on track. They check in with you and everything. As far as like the outline and everything, I already had it in my mind, like what I wanted to have in the book. So it was more about, for my writing process was outlining the book and the chapters. And then I could not just start from the beginning to end. I kind of had to jump around for myself. So I would start at one part, maybe the introduction, and go to chapter one. I would get stuck. I would go to another chapter, and then it would kind of bounce up and down in different chapters until, I felt like everything was kind of done and complete. But if I tried to stick with one chapter and just keep going, trudging through it, I think I would have been like, stuck for a long time. Just over a year to finish the writing part of it. And it's not a very long book, but it's just like going to the gym. You have to be disciplined, right?
Right.
So to sit down every day, or make sure you have a schedule to sit down, that was probably my biggest challenge, because, it is a goal to finish a book, to write a book. And there's that self-sabotage part of me that was like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow or whatever. So I think that was the hardest part for me. So I think everybody needs to find their own writing style. And for me, like jumping around and filling things in different spots, it's almost like in high school, we would do a journal writing every morning, and we would have to write for 10 minutes straight And if you couldn't think of something, you just write, I can write, I can write, I can write. But it was about like not stopping. So I felt like once I got stuck, I would just go to another part that I could have an idea about and start writing in that section there and then jump around until I felt like it was complete.
That's good, Janine. And I'm funny because I could actually resonate with that because that's kind of how I did mine too. I can't really do anything in like a direct order. Like if I take a course, I feel like I have to bounce around. Like I try to do it in order and I get bored. And I'm like, I got to skip a space and then I'm going to come back again. So I feel like I get that.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's just that it's because it's straightforward. Like I feel like life is non-linear, right? So I have a hard time doing anything linear. So I get that.
Yeah.
So when I wrote mine, I kind of did the same thing, but I struggled with the outline. Like that was really hard for me. Once I would sit down and I would start to write, like if I would just write and then piece it, then I could do it. But that freaking outline, and every time I've had to put things together, the outline is always the trickiest part. Like once I get that figured out, then I can just kind of start filling in the gaps. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's funny because I don't know, when you started writing that, at Chat GPT now, it's so nice because you can be like, hey, give me an outline on this content, right? And then you can sort of kind of get a little bit of a structure to it. We didn't have that, before. Can you imagine if we had that in school?
Oh my God.
Like I did an outline,
I know. I keep thinking that these kids in college are just saying, giving the Chat GPT a prompt and having them write the essays.
Yeah. The only thing is they all use the delve and the dive into. Look for the words because they use the same words. And because I use them a lot for my when I'm doing my show notes for my podcast. It drives me nuts because I'll go in there and I have to like reword it because I need it to kind of be my style. But they will use like the same delves into this. I'm like, I hate that word. Do not give me the word delves into something. Like that is a Chat GPT word, So you can kind of tell a little bit. But a lot of times I will go in, even when I use the Chat GPT, I will say, I don't like this paragraph, or I need you to write this like Jennifer would write this because this is like too verbose for me or something, So you can train it. You can kind of train it to sort of,
I know it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. But congratulations on your book. Cause I know that's no easy feat. And like I said, I know I don't know. I wrote mine. It took me about 5 months, but I'm kind of neurotic like that. Like once I start something, I just like go gung ho, like we're just going to get it done. I don't know, and I don't know if you're a perfectionist. I am. And so I have to set deadlines because I will get wrapped up in the continual perfectionism of it. Like I'm building a program right now and I'm trying to finish up the script right now. And I've written it. I'm running it through ChatGPT to clean it up so that all I have to do is read it. But I've already done this. I've already done this one time and now I'm doing it again. And so this is what I do. And so I have to give myself timelines and just say, this will be done by the end of December because I will keep running edits. Like I will keep going through it and going, I don't like this. Let me change this. And I don't know. I don't know if you deal with that.
I don't think I do. I don't think I have that much of a perfectionist thing.
Oh, good.
I think at some point I'm like, okay, that's good enough.
Yeah. No, you need to be that way because so my program is all about subconscious blocks. That's what I'm talking about. These 6 major blocks, right? Perfectionism is one of them. And I'm laughing at myself because here I'm talking about this and I recognize it. And I'm like, man, this is like a big one for me that I'm having to really go through and tell myself why, it all comes back to like root things, belief systems and stuff like that. But it's one that as I'm building this, it really surfaced for me. And I realized like, this is a big one for me,
Wow.
So anyways, so good stuff. Congratulations on your book. It's awesome that you got that done. So I would love to know, these are kind of some of the things you've had, like, lots of challenge, but even as being an entrepreneur on your own, some of the things that you've, because you've been doing this a while, you've been in your craft and you kind of know what you're doing, you're rolling your things, but somebody coming into the entrepreneur space, maybe they're moving from the corporate space to entrepreneur, or maybe they're just, I don't know, first time, something that you maybe had to overcome or work through in the business side of things.
Yeah, I'm still kind of overcoming it as far as like the technology part. I think technology for me is like it's like that big mountain I need to climb. I'm like, it seems so daunting that, it's hard to take that first step. So kind of finding resources, finding people
Mm,
that know more about that area than I do and learning from them and kind of learning, knowing that you can outsource help, developing like for my web page, like asking somebody rather than trying to do it completely by myself because I would never be able to do it in a timely manner or well, you know. So I think it's always asking for help and kind of looking to people who are successful either in your field or something similar, and then you can ask them for support as well.
it's good. Yeah, that's one of the things that I'm really been working on is, delegating, finding people that can help me in certain areas because like you, technology is an area that I mean, I can do basic things like on my website and stuff, but even like I started, my mailing list with MailChimp. I have somebody kind of helping me with that, create that, but I'm trying to put something in there and I'm having to look things up and be like, so how do you do if you're trying to do this and this? And sometimes you're right. It's just easier to ask for the help and find the person you need that can do that much quicker than you.
Yeah.
And then you can focus on the things that you're good at, right?
Yeah, yeah, because I'm really good at being a therapist, a speech therapist, but the business part is where I really need to, still learn a lot more about.
Yeah. I ran into somebody the other day and he was like, I was telling him about, because I'd used to do an email campaign with our show. And then I had put it when I was going through my health stuff, I put it on hold because the other gal that was with me was no longer with me. And I felt like it was one of those things I just didn't have the energy to dedicate. And it was funny because he said, no, it's a good thing. It's okay to monetize and do, and I laugh at that because when we enjoy what we do as creators or whatever that is, speech pathology, where our gift is, we are really passionate about the work that we do. We're not always passionate about the other side of the things that we also need to do for the business, right?
Hmm.
They're necessary, but that's not the stuff that we're super excited about, right? And so even like doing a podcast, it's a labor of love project. You enjoy doing it, but I do work. I mean, I do work, like I have to, I got other things I got to do. And so you have to sometimes really think that, yeah, there are other things you need to have done. And that's where I think that help can come in to kind of navigate some of those pieces that can complement what you're doing, but maybe those aren't where your strengths are.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I love it. So, any other like projects in the works? Anything you got coming up that we need to know about, or we're relishing in the book right now?
Yeah, well, I've been doing a lot of podcasts as guests, right? And then I'm
Okay,
going to be
awesome.
developing, hopefully, like a webinar shortly. And, in my next, I would like to, in the next year or two, be on a TED Talk. I think that's like an overarching goal, and all these little
Yeah.
steps are going to help me get there, I think. So I think definitely more outreach locally to different preschools and early education centers. I have a YMCA that I work closely with, and some of the preschools that I have early intervention kids at. Been doing some parent and teacher trainings at there. But it'd be great to have like a webinar to reach people, nationally and also internationally. Because some of the podcasts I've been on have been, in London or
Yeah.
in, Spain or whatever it is. And it's great to be able to reach people virtually because, this is the era of the internet and you can be anywhere, anytime.
Yeah, that's the beautiful thing about podcasting. I mean, yeah, you can talk to pretty much anybody anywhere and get your message out if you're willing to go on and talk. And I think you would be great at a TED Talk. I think that would be a really a great thing for you to do because I think you speak well, and I think it would be a
Thank
definitely
you.
a fun learning experience for sure. I've interviewed several people that have done those, and yeah, I think it'd be a fun thing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
love, I really believe that we can decrease the number of children that need speech therapy if we have more parent and teacher and educator training because, and even working with whether it's like a child that has normal developing physical and cognition, or it's a child with a disability, I think all parents, caregivers, and educators could benefit from the simple strategies in my book because I
Yeah.
wrote it as a conversation, not so much as a textbook. There's nothing
Yeah.
that's not easily understood, and every chapter has examples and activities at the end to help you incorporate those strategies into their daily life and practice.
Yeah, I like it. Well, and I think that, yeah, because you're talking about the sabotage and stuff. And I think, yeah, I mean, parenting's hard,
Parenting's hard, yeah.
and you learn, and there's so many things that I think communication, I mean, I feel like even when we talk about like communication, right? Like that's such a hard thing. And even now, with the way kids are growing up with like the computers, I mean, it's so different from when we grew up. We didn't have phones. We had to talk face to face. We had to communicate. We didn't like you. We had to tell you. We couldn't be like, behind a computer and doing that. And so I think that, yeah, we've gotten away from that so much too, that learning to communicate well is such a gift, right? To be an effective communicator, but do it in a way that you enable your child to be that way. So we're not doing it for them, and put them in a position where they too can how they can communicate well or effectively for themselves. So I think there's a lot to this. I mean, definitely. And I like that you're talking about, hey, everybody could benefit from this on some level. Yeah, I haven't read your book,
Absolutely.
obviously, yet, so I don't know everything about it, but it sounds like a practical resource.
It is. And like one of the big things I want parents to try to think about at least is don't ask a yes no question unless you're ready to honor the
Ooh,
no.
that's
Because we've
good.
been stuck, I learned this very early on as a speech therapist, and
Mhm.
it's been game changing because a lot of times we ask kids, are you ready to work? Are you ready to clean up? Are you ready to eat? Are you ready to go to
And they go,
bed?
no,
And they go, no. And they're like, okay, well, you're still going to do it. you know?
which
So,
is, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
So you ask them, it's almost like a rhetorical question. You ask them that, and they're going to tell you they don't want to do it. And then yeah,
yeah, or even kids like you,
good.
can you say caterpillar? Like we're asking them, can you do something, right? So to get away from that, you would offer choices. For my
Mm,
son, I'd be like, okay, it's time to go to bed. Do you want to brush your teeth first or change into pajamas first? Or I might ask
yeah,
the kid, hey, we're going to do an activity. Do you want to do the puzzle or the book first?
yeah.
Which one do you want? Or we're going to have a snack. Do you want banana or an apple? And I like to hold things about shoulder width apart so they can see. So if I'm like, hey, what shirt do you want to wear? The red shirt or the green shirt? So I'm not going to hold them too close together because I can't see where they're
Right.
looking. But if I hold them about shoulder width apart, even if they can't speak, they can look to one of them and be like, oh yeah, the red shirt. I love red. Red is the color of apples, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it's like you can provide that language and um, verbal example and modeling, even if the
Mhm.
child's not able to speak, right? So they can look
Yeah.
or they can reach for it, and you can start giving them those words that they should be saying. And then slowly by slowly, having them imitate either the sign for more or please or the vocabulary word you're trying to introduce. It's like little baby steps in order to get to verbal communication. Yeah.
This is so good. And while you were talking about this choices thing, this is so interesting because I used to do this in sales with my consultants. And so, like, this lesson you're teaching right now is like, it not only works with your kids, but it works in like when you're dealing with adults. Because I used to use the candy store example, like when you take your kids into the candy store. And if you take them into the store and you say, pick a candy, they're going to go, there's 100 pieces of candy. I want this. I want that. But if you say what I would do with mine is you can pick from there, there, or there. That's
Yeah.
your choices. Pick
hmm
one. And so they now had to pick an option, right? And so I would use that example when I was in Mary Kay, when I would talk about giving like clients choices instead of laying everything out and putting a book in front of them and just being like, okay, buy, pick. And they're
hmm
like, they have nowhere to start. I would put like kind of guide them into choices so that we could be like, you're looking at this or we're looking at this. Like, are you interested in the skincare? Are you interested in color? Or you know what I mean? Like I would guide them into choices so they had to pick. So this thing you're talking about is like it just made me think of that, how effective this really is in a lot of things that we do in life when we're dealing with people, because it almost, it reduces like that analysis paralysis, right? Like it helps
Yeah, absolutely.
guide people to make decisions.
Yeah, and
And
it makes them feel a little empowered too, especially the
yes,
kids,
gives them
because
control,
yeah, they're like,
right?
"Oh, I'm making this decision." Like,
Yes,
we might say like,
yes,
"Oh, we're going to do these two things. Which one do you want to do first?" That it still
right.
means we're going to do two things, but you get to choose
But
which
you're
one we're going to
giving
do
them
first. Yeah,
control. Yes,
absolutely.
I'm with you on this 100%. And I don't know that I knew that in the beginning when I was parenting. I don't even know where I picked that up. I don't know if like I learned that in like when I was doing sales, but I did, and I still have done that with my kids a lot of times. Like I will, and I'm not saying I'm perfect, because I'm sure there are times I've asked a yes and a no question. They've told me no, and I've been like, well, that wasn't the answer I was looking for, like make a joke about it. But I try to think in terms of like that. How do we give them kind of the choice, right? Because when they, when you're dealing with people, think about adults, right? When we come up with ideas or we make a decision about something, we're more inclined to be proactive about it if it's our choice and somebody's not telling us what to do.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yes, on all of that, I
Yeah.
think it's, yeah, you're giving them power
And
to make some decisions.
another example is when we articulation, if we say like, can you say elephant? Can you say this or that? And they say no, then okay, that's done. But I might say
Right.
like, elephant, you say it, your turn. So I'm directing them to say it rather than asking them,
Can they?
can you
Yeah.
say it? Right? Or
Yeah.
if I have a child, I've caught parents doing this all the time. Oh, can you, I was like, say it's Sophia. Sophia, can you pick that book up? Can you pick that, but whatever it up? Can you do this? Rather than, Sophia, pick the ball up. Or Sophia, put this in the trash. Rather than directing them to do it, they're like giving them a yes no question. And then the child has the
Yeah.
option of saying no.
Right.
So if you
Right.
want
Which is
something to happen, you give a directive, I think.
yeah, it's gonna, and it's also just gonna have more of a positive outcome, right? It's just a different, it's a different energy.
Yeah.
It's almost like I used to talk about, like, and I use the same example, like if you have a kid in the store crying about candy and you take the candy from them and they're crying, it really doesn't help the situation. But if you can redirect them and get them on to something else, then there's a positive experience with it. And and you get the parents like, why would you do that? But I've always kind of been at that mindset of how do we create, it's not that you're enabling, but you're trying to create the outcome that you want, right? And if you're putting them in a situation where there's a negative outcome, then nobody's winning. You're not winning, the kid's not winning, nobody's winning. So I love this, and I think that, yeah, what you're doing is important, and yeah, you need to get it out there. You definitely need to get it out there. More parents need to hear it.
Thank you.
I just, when you were talking about that, I'm like, that is so funny, because I would do that in sales. And I remember using this example with kids on how to give them choices. And I would use the candy as the choice, that you give them this, or this, they're going to pick a choice.
Yeah.
They're going to pick, and then it's going to be empowering because now they got to pick the choice and you didn't tell them, right? Or you didn't leave them in there where they couldn't make a decision, and now it's a negative and they don't have it, and that.
Yeah, and
It's all good.
it really does save time, because I'm sure
Yes.
every parent has gone through oh, what do you want to have for breakfast? Do you want
Right.
waffles?
Oh,
No. Do you
no.
want such and such? No. Do you want such and such? No. And you go down this rabbit hole of, yes and
I
no
don't want that. Well,
questions.
which do you want?
But if you say, okay, we're going to have two things. We're going to have either waffles or eggs. Which one do you want? Then it saves you time. It, gives them an option. They feel empowered, and then you can move on.
Yeah. If we teach them this in sales, Janine, they can backpedal it to parenting, right? Like
Absolutely.
everything you need to know in sales, learn from Janine about parenting. It'll transfer to sales. Because
Absolutely.
I'm thinking about this, and I'm like, think about it. You're like, today we're going to pick this, Janine. And I used to do this. I would be like, no kidding. Like when I wanted to get people to events, I wouldn't say like, which event can you come to? Because they're never going to give me an answer. And I'd be like, hey, Janine, we have two events coming up, Saturday the 16th or Saturday the 23rd. Which one works for you?
Yeah, absolutely, right?
You got to pick, right?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, see, it works. I'm saying they just need to learn your techniques, and then they too could become great sewers. Good stuff. I love
Totally.
it, Janine. You've been awesome. I love what you're doing, and congratulations on your success with the book and all that you're doing. And I hope you get the TED Talk under wraps and you get the webinar and all the good things happening. What I'd like to know from you is if our audience wants to get in touch with you, maybe they want to pick this book up or they want to cheer you on, follow you, whatever the things, where do you want us to send them?
Please go to my website. It's playdumbandsabotage.com.
Okay.
And then
I
from
like it.
there, there's, the link for my book. There's a way to contact me. There is my Instagram and Facebook links as well. And I'll be posting like a lot of my podcasts that I've been on there as well, as soon as I can
Awesome.
figure out the
Awesome.
tech part.
Yeah. How many shows did you calculate? Like how many shows you've been on so far?
I want to say I've probably done at least 30 shows.
Oh, good for you. Yeah, it's a
So
lot.
there
Yeah.
not that many are posted on my website, but yeah, if you go to, like Apple Podcast, whatever you guys use for
They'll
podcasts,
find you.
and you can just put my name in, a bunch of them will
Yeah.
pop up, and then a bunch of them, nobody produces exactly the same way. So
Right.
some of them produce the same day, the same week, months later. So
Right. Yeah.
eventually,
Well,
they'll roll out.
here, yeah, here's the good news. I'm current right now, so yours will be going out this week. That is a rarity because I was telling somebody today, I said, normally I'm booked like 3 months out,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
normally I have like recordings in the bag for like months and I'm like stressing out because I'm trying to get them out. But I took a little hiatus over the summer to get caught up because it was driving me crazy. So I took that break, got everybody caught up again. So right now you are at the beginning again, which means yours will go out pretty quickly. So
Amazing.
that's
Yeah.
a good thing. So
Thank
awesome.
you.
Well, and yeah, and good for you for getting all the practicing, talking, and all that good stuff because you get a lot of good practice doing all those podcasts
Yeah,
too.
it's like
So
meeting new people and just
yeah,
practicing conversation and getting to know people. It's amazing. I love it.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time today, your wisdom, all the good things, and for your authenticity and sharing your story.
Thank
Truly
you.
appreciate that.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Do want to say to our audience, of course, if you enjoy the show, you know what to do. Head on over there to the YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, whatever. You can like, share, comment, do all the things so we can keep sharing all this fabulous content. And as I always say, in order to live the extraordinary, you must start, and every start begins with a decision. You guys take care, be safe, be kind to one another, and we will see you next time.